Hi, I'm Jennifer Possley. I am the Conservation Program Manager here at Fairchild Tropical Botanic Garden in Miami. And here in Miami, we are blessed with a high diversity of native ferns. In fact, we are the hotspot for native fern diversity in the continental US with 60 native species. However, as we all know, Miami is a major metropolitan area. Habitat destruction is upwards of 99%. And there's not much fern habitat left. So as a result, many of our native ferns are already gone or are critically imperiled. And that sets the stage for why conservation of ferns like this super cool Florida endemic bristle fern was an inevitable focus of our rare plant conservation program here at Fairchild. We started to work with ferns in the early 2000s, and in hindsight, there were some steps we took early on that played a major role in later success. These included extensive field surveys, interviews with local experts to find out where these species are, and sometimes just as important, where they used to be, and partnering with Valerie Pence and her team at CREW in the Cincinnati Zoo to start to build an ex situ collection. Our program really started to take off once we began to do in-house propagation from spore. You really don't need any special equipment or skills to do this, and I cannot stress enough how informative it is to get to know these species at all life stages. It's really helps a lot with field surveys. If you are interested in trying your own similar operation, I think there should be a link to a one-page flyer near my abstract on the conference webpage with instructions. So before too long, we had an ex situ collection of hundreds of plants of nearly 24 species, and we were ready to start reintroducing some of these to the wild. So that's what we began to do in 2008 and 2009 with a species called Tecteria heracleofolia, which you can see in this picture, growing on the sides of a really steep solution hole. To date, we have outplanted more than 800 individual ferns belonging to 8 species. One of the success stories of which I'm most proud is our work with Micrograma Heterophila. We put 56 individuals into a Miami-Dade County preserve. These are propagated by cuttings, not by spore, from 3 genetic lines. And we kind of nestled them into little nooks in the limestone at the bases of trees, along with some high quality sphagnum moss if needed. And they've mostly done extremely well. And then at the opposite end of the spectrum is Fragrant Maidenhair, Adiantum melanoleucum. CREW started hundreds of beautiful plants for us, and we put them out into the appropriate habitat within the historic range, but we had 2 major strikes against us. One was raccoons. They were just atrocious in this site. They pulled up everything and dug everything and threw it around. We had to return frequently to replant. But the other was we got the microsite wrong. We were in rockland hammock and in solution holes, but because you can't really plant a fern into solid rock, we put it into muck next to solid rock, hoping they would shed their spores onto the rock and spread. But before they could do that, they succumbed to raccoon injuries and the survivors rotted. Their roots were just too wet. Luckily, we did keep a few dozen back at the nursery at Fairchild, and we're trying again. So with the fragrant maidenhair and now with this species, Asplenium verecundum, we're trying a different example. This is a very rare species here that we're trying to reintroduce to the Deering estate. It's extirpated there. And the preserve manager, Dallas, worked with me to affix some raccoon barriers that were some hardware cloth to keep raccoons out. And then instead of planting these in the muck next to the rock, we kind of left them half in, half out of their pots. We cut the pot away, put the pot nestled into a little nook in the rock, and cut the plastic so that the roots could touch the rock, and then we bolted it into place. These have been there for about a year now, and 3 out of 4 are doing quite well. So I have high hopes. And then I wanted to mention that this program has expanded beyond Fairchild in several ways and beyond Miami. So first, in 2014, we began working on a similar program, for the federally listed ferns of Puerto Rico, like the elfin tree fern shown here. We are increasingly propagating rare ferns from other state and local preserves around Florida. And this example is Asplenium erosum from Withlacoochee State Forest. And third, we're working to make more native ferns available for homeowners for landscaping, since there are very few native fern options out there. And that's it in a nutshell. I'd like to acknowledge the many collaborators here, with a special shout out to Mike Friedman and Isabel Lamas, who are especially instrumental in everything that I just presented today. And ferns are really one of the few subjects I could talk for hours about. So if you have any leftover questions, or you just want to talk more about ferns, drop me an email. You can also follow me on Instagram on my Fern only feed. So enjoy the rest of the conference, and thanks for your interest in ferns.